So, I'll be honest, when it comes to Monkey Kid, it's kind of one of those themes that during reveal season I'm like, woo, shiny, that looks cool. And then I promptly proceed to forget that it exists. But now, having built some of these sets and having them here in person, I think LEGO might have won me over as a Monkey Kid fan, and that was probably their plan all along. But by the end of this video, I hope I can convince you of the merits of this theme, so let's take a closer look. LEGO did send me all 4 of these sets early to review, but you can pick them up starting June 1st from LEGO.com. And like I said, I have literally no experience with Monkey Kid, but I must admit that I am biased in its favor because it is, for the most part, an original theme. It's an adaptation of Journey to the West, but it's very much an original adaptation at that, bringing in a lot of LEGO flair. It really does have a life of its own. Before we take a look at each set individually, there's one thing that I do really want to make a point of. And that's the building experience for these sets is significantly different from what I'm used to. And granted, I just build a lot of Minecraft, which is a bunch of 2x4s on top of 2x4s, very classical, basic construction. But I noticed right away that Monkey Kid is modern. It's obvious to such an extent that I noticed it within the first few bags of building the first set I did, which was May's Dragon. There were pieces I knew existed, but just had never owned before, and now I have experience building with all sorts of them. Credit where credit is due, the designers make fantastic use of these parts and use them in a variety of ways that does justify their existence. Building these sets was a wonderful way to get up to speed with what LEGO has become in recent years. So up first we have 80046 Monkey Kid's Cloud Airship. This is the smallest set of the summer 2023 wave with 540 pieces and retailing for $50 here in the US. I've got a variety of other prices here on the side. Even though this is the smallest, I guess, set of this wave, I do find it to be surprisingly well-rounded when compared to the others, as there's a lot more play potential with this one than some of the later sets we'll take a look at, and that mostly comes from the amount of side builds that this set has. Since this is my first time exploring the theme of Monkey Kid, I'm definitely most excited about some of these minifigures. There's 4 altogether in this set. Of course, we get MK Monkey Kid himself, and I love how dual molded printed legs are standard for this figure. Uncanny level of detail going on here. The quality of the minifigures for this theme continues with the next one, which is Power Up Sandy. I believe this is his first appearance in a set. Again, he's got great printing top and bottom through the legs. He also has a little shoulder pad piece just to add some extra detail. Our generic baddie for this set is an ink demon. They seem to play a pretty prominent role in Season 4, and most of the 2023 sets include some version of them. Also, a great hairpiece that I've never seen before, though I'm sure it's been around for a while. The last figure is the Golden Winged Eagle. This figure isn't new to this set, but still a great addition. As the name suggests, we've got some pretty sweet golden wings on the guy, plus a beak beard attachment underneath. Looks thoroughly menacing. Lots of fun parts going on with this figure here. A lot of new things I hadn't seen before. The main build, of course, is the Airship itself, which is a very custom, homemade looking vehicle. And for the most part, I like it a lot. The colors here are fantastic. I've always loved the Monkey Kid colors. The combination of that classic yellow and red with the reintroduced turquoise is phenomenal. It's bright, it's bold, it's just very LEGO to me. The airship's covered in fun little details and has a number of functions associated with it. For instance, this bucket on the side, which allows you to lower and raise people or items to and from the surface without landing yourself. The skis on the base of the vehicle are just loosely hung there, so they give the thing, first of all, a nice angle when it lands, but also helps you ease into a landing, which is simple, but I kind of like it, and how they dangle around is pretty fun. The little winglets on the side can move up and down, and the propellers, of course, can spin, and perhaps unsurprisingly, you can open the airship up, and there are some small details on the inside. Nothing too crazy. There's some stickered pictures, and then some additional storage for some snacks and a potted plant of all things. These might have more significance in the TV show, which I've not seen. Up on top is Mo the cat manning a stud shooter. This version of Mo is the rather new kitten and still features that very delightful orange hair printed above the eyes. The pieces they use there to create the rounded shape of the balloon took me a while to find, but it's actually been used in the last few years in both the Friends and the City lines as the tail end of their aircraft. If I had one complaint to levy against the set, I think it's that the balloon isn't terribly convincing. I think it's just a little too triangular. I would have expected something a bit rounder, but it would have been pretty hard for the LEGO designers to create a completely rounded shape with available pieces at this size. As it is, this is quite what I would describe as leak-proof. There are no gaps, and it's even nicely finished off underneath. One of the side builds, a smaller airship, can fit snugly on the back of this too, which is always a nice little treat. We do have a villain side build, which is this crossbow, and it's just another stud shooter, nothing too crazy going on. Let's see if I can... Yep, that's lost forever. The last side build is a little bit of terrain, and it features one of the golden weapons. Much like things from the Ninjago line or even city tool packs, you get a bunch of these different weapon attachments in a bag altogether. So even though the set technically only includes this particular weapon, you still get all the other attachments. Especially in the minifigure department, I think this is a strong introduction to what Monkey Kid has to offer. So next up is May's Guardian Dragon. This is set number 80047. It's got 605 pieces and is retailing for $75 here in the US. Though it's interesting to note that that price, more than any of the other sets in this wave, varies drastically from region to region. Again, let's look at the figures right away before we get into the main build. There's 4 figures included in this set as well. We get May Power up here, who I believe was included in an earlier 2023 set, but still is a great figure. Her colors just work really, really well. She's got a weapon made using one of the parts from that special weapons pack made for Monkey Kid too, which is great, and the base of that is the dragon hilt from Ninjago. The power-up version of Mr. Tang is new for this set, and his addition here gets you one step closer to creating the whole power-up gang. He also has one of those new weapons, which is pretty cool. It makes for a pretty sweet-looking staff. In this set, we get the Ink General, leader of the Ink Demons. The key difference from the Ink Demon is that he makes use of that rather creepy, ghostly bottom part, which I'm most familiar with from Dementors from Harry Potter. And we also get the Yellow Tusk Elephant, who's probably the coolest figure of this set. He also came in a set earlier this year, the Yellow Tusk Elephant. Go figure. He looks great, making use of a very specialized neck attachment there. It makes for a pretty spectacular minifigure. I don't think anybody's going to complain about getting him a second time around. These last few sets don't have side builds, which is not something I'm really used to coming from LEGO, which usually has all sorts of little side builds. This set is called May's Guardian Dragon, and you get May's Guardian Dragon. And it's a beautiful set. This was the first one I built of the batch, and I was pretty surprised right off the bat by some of the techniques employed here. You can see right away that the construction of this is all diagonal for the body, which is not something I was expecting, but it allows for some great angles and makes you look at some of these parts in ways that you've never before. The shaping is undeniably impressive and really captures the look of a Chinese dragon so well. It continues May's color scheme too, which I think is one of the greatest things to come out of the Monkey Kid line. The turquoise, the lime green, the white, and the pearl gold. It's perfect. It's really cool to see the old school dragon design juxtaposed with these modern, vibrant colors. Everywhere you look, there are pretty modern pieces on this one. The swords, the cloud pieces, all the rounded shapes that have come out in recent years. The designers have made tremendous use of all of these to give us something that looks really organic and original. There is less posability in this model than I thought there would be. The body, for the most part, is completely static from the top of the neck to about halfway down the tail. The tail actually has this cool whip function, as those joints are all very loose and frictionless. However, no neck posability is kind of a rough one, and I was a little taken aback by that. The head can't even bend further down than this, and can only go up and to the sides, which is interesting. I definitely would have liked at least a bit more movement there. The legs have a good degree of movement to them, but I was surprised that the wings really can't do all that much either. They're kind of locked at this one angle and they can't go up any further than that. That aside though, it is a beautifully designed model. I think I'm most impressed with the head. The construction is crazy complex, but the instructions lay it out in such a way that anybody can do it. This is for kids 9 and up, but I was using techniques I had never used before to craft some of the stuff on this dragon. That's pretty sweet. May's Guardian Dragon is a simple set. It's exactly as advertised. You get a dragon. I do think the US price especially, and probably for other regions too, is a bit rough. At $75 for 605 relatively medium-sized pieces, I don't exactly feel like I got my money's worth here. But if you like this style of dragon, and if you like May's color scheme, I think you won't be too bummed shelling out full price for this. It makes for a great display model, and overall I'm pretty happy with it. I think this was one of the most fun models to build in this wave. Our second to last set is 80048, the Mighty Azure Lion. This one has 789 pieces and retails for $80 here in the US. Now I understand mechs are pretty par for the course when it comes to Monkie Kid, and just looking at a few that have been produced over the years, you can tell that these have always been done excellently. Even so, I feel like this one really has to be something special. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a look at these figures. This set has 5 minifigs altogether, starting off with the transformed version of the Monkie Kid himself. The hair, torso, and legs remain the same, but we have a new face print as well as a tail add-on. Also, for the first time this wave, we're getting the Monkey King. This figure has shown up in plenty of other sets over the years, but that doesn't make him any less special than me. I also love the enormous staff he's holding, which makes use of 2 of the same piece from that bag of weapons. Looks really intimidating. As in many of the sets in which the Monkey King appears, he's given his floating cloud too, which I think is great. It's really well sculpted, making use of a lot of relatively new 1x1 pieces in white. We've also got the power-up version of Pigsy. I believe that is a new costume for this character in this set, and Pigsy also has one of those special gold weapons. We get 2 villains in this set. One of them is the Ink Demon, very similar to the one we saw before, just has a different weapon. And then we get the Azure Lion himself. This figure has also shown up in earlier sets, but of course had to make an appearance here. Really impressive parts going on here. First of all, of course, that double-sided cape, one side being purple, the other being black. A very impressive hairpiece and great printing throughout. He matches his larger mech very well. Much like May's Guardian Dragon, this set gives you exactly what it promises, the Mighty Azure Lion. This is a giant mech suit, and you can actually have your driver, the Azure Lion, fit right here inside the chest, which I think is pretty great. It's so seamless, you wouldn't even know that that's a cockpit unless you built this set. And I love that clean look, which is carried out throughout the rest of the build too. My experience with mechs is pretty much limited to Exoforce, from, almost 2 decades ago now. And so, to say mechs have changed over the years would be quite the understatement. I think the thing that surprised me most when building this is just the sheer strength it has. Even though it's incredibly bulky, everything is attached in such a way that it's super secure and super easy to play with, without frustratingly have limbs or pieces fall off everywhere. That's just not going to happen because of the way this thing is constructed. And at the same time, it doesn't look like a big Technic mess. As to be expected, there's a good deal of posability with this guy in his legs, in his arms especially, which can pretty much go any way you want them to. This one does not have great knee or ankle mobility though. The ankles can roll to the sides so you can get a wider stance, but they cannot go forwards and back. They are locked in place, unfortunately. The knees too are not jointed at all. That's just to make sure that this thing doesn't fall over. Something that was new to me, probably not new to mechs of this size in general, were these rubber pads on the base of the feet, which help make sure that it doesn't slide on a smooth surface such as my table here. Much like May's Guardian Dragon 2, I was surprised to find that the head doesn't go down any further than this, so he can't really look down on his enemies all that well. But as depicted in the box art, he can go and roar up at the sky, which is a nice little compromise, I suppose. The Mighty Azure Lion makes use of primarily turquoise-colored pieces, and I have to say, it's just so great to have this color back. Yeah, I realize it's been years now, but we're still getting brand new pieces. And it's crazy to think that this color was ever absent from the LEGO palette. It's become such an integral part of so many themes, especially here in Monkie Kid. In addition to raw pure muscle, he's also got some weapons too, including a sword which can be removed if you'd like. It matches the minifigure version of the character pretty well too. Slung across his back is a almost scroll-like looking thing, but it's actually a stud launching gun, which is pretty fun. He can hold that in one hand, or it can even be mounted up here on his shoulder, as shown by the box art. Around the back, he certainly doesn't look as great as the front, but there's nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, there's some fun details here too, including a tail which uses the golden egg from Harry Potter as the tip. While building this, the head became another highlight, making use of a bunch of crazy techniques spelled out in such a way in the instructions that it became super simple and straightforward. The mouth can open too, of course, which is a necessity and looks great. Some really fun parts usage here is the mane, the hair, which is made out of 3 Ninjago dragon jaws. Really fascinating parts usage, and it works really well to get that organic wavy look. They're attached on hinges too, so you can flare them out a little bit to go for that look, I guess. Simple as the set is, you know, it's a mech with arms and legs. I love it. It looks so cool. If I do end up continuing to collect some Monkie Kid sets, the thing I'm going to be on the lookout from now on is the mechs, because this was seriously impressive. This might just be my favorite of the wave, but this last set's going to put up a strong fight. I think a good word to describe Monkie Kid might be excessive. In the best possible way, I promise, because if the theme wasn't excessive, we wouldn't get gems like this. This is set number 80049, Palace of the Dragon of the East. It's got 2,364 pieces and retails for a rather surprising $190 here in the US. I knew I was in for something crazy with this set when it gave me a box that rivaled the size of Rivendell. It's getting a little cozy. Monkie Kid tends to release one uber big set per year. This year was no exception, and the setting for this one is especially awesome in that it takes place underwater. Unsurprisingly, for a set of this size, it brings us an impressive lineup of minifigures. Starting with the Monkie Kid, who's got some excellent scuba gear here. Interestingly enough, that rubber piece that you see both on his hip and over his mouth and on his back, it's actually all one piece bended together, and it works really well. And he's wielding a camera, which is great because he's going to want to get some pictures of this epic place. We also have a different version of the Monkey King. I'm guessing this one has shown up in other sets before too, but hey, it's brand new to me. Then we get some fun underwater creatures, starting with the Crab Generals. There's 2 of these in the set, and they feature a brand new torso print and, of course, that delightful new head mold. In a similar situation are the Shrimp. That could be a tongue twister. Can't do it. But they also feature that same torso print, longer legs, and they have an equally wonderful, perhaps even better, head. Their smiles are just so ridiculously goofy. I love it. These 4 warriors, of course, guard the palace. There's one figure that's a bit more of a mystery to me, and that's the Turtle Minister. I'm sure his role is a bit more clear if you've seen season 4 of the show. It's a fascinating figure, but there's something deeply unsettling about his expression. He's got a nice printed disc for the shell on his back too. The last figure is the Dragon of the East himself. This figure was also included earlier this year in the set by the name of the Dragon of the East. He certainly is a standout here with his 2 brick-built weapons, gorgeous hair hat combo, and that nice soft cape behind him. I don't even know where to begin with a set like this. It is incredible. Quite the delightful build too. There are so many details. It makes for such an awesome setting too. We get all sorts of underwater creatures, crabs, we get the Friends pack of fish in bright light orange. There's all sorts of seaweed scattered around. Yeah, where do I start? Let's start with what we can see on the outside first, because trust me, there's a whole interior to this thing too. One of my favorite parts of the build, of course, is the dragon. This theme really just does well with its brick-built creatures. The head on this one I think is especially well done, making use of a lot of really cool and unusual parts to make some great shaping. The dragon here is built into the ground on a turntable, but still has some flexibility with a ball joint in his neck and ball joints in the arms too. He's holding one of several orbs found throughout this set. Down here in the front is an aquarium area of sorts, a shallow little underwater cave where there's all sorts of fish and seaweed. One fascinating part here is the brand new fern leaf in that sparkly opalescent pink color. It's so bizarre that there's only one of this piece in this set. There's a story there somewhere, but I have no idea what it is. Working our way over, we can see some windows that kind of give us a hint of what's going on in the interior, but trust me, we'll see what that is all about soon enough. And then we have the entrance to what becomes the second layer of the palace here. There's a stairway that goes up along the back, and it passes this little gazebo here that has some sort of game. And I love that there's just the inclusion of this staircase to imply a way to get up to the top. It's a very elaborate staircase too for what it is. Plenty of room to put figures around, and it's decorated very nicely with all sorts of sea plants. Hard to miss up here on the side is an enlarged version of the Monkie Kid staff. We'll take a look at that in a second. The main gimmick of this set is the fact that it gets even bigger. The sides open up to reveal the first part of the interior, the throne room. You know, I feel like there's features like this in many other sets that open up to reveal an interior, and it just doesn't live up to the hype, but this one does. It is so honestly over detailed, but I'm here for it. It's tiled off beautifully, making use of some fantastic colors, and take note especially of the walls, which have these great windows, all built using snot construction. It's incredibly elaborate, definitely a room fit for a king. Beyond that though, there's not much to say about it, and that's okay because trust me, I have a lot more talking to do. We can flip the entire thing around to find yet even more interior bits. Before we get too far into that, it's worth noting that when you open the side here, it actually reveals a special little room, a dungeon, complete with a skeleton. There's nothing on the opposite side, but it's a nice little Easter egg, and I'm glad the designers made use of that space. The first room here is nicely furnished, though quite simple, featuring 2 chairs and some artwork on the walls. The middle room on the bottom floor is the armory, and there's plenty of weapons to deck out your shrimps, I think I had it, and your crab generals. A nice addition too is this big clear panel which allows you to see the back of the throne. On the far side over here is the royal bed chambers, and the bed build isn't all that spectacular, but underneath there's a few Easter eggs including some snacks and some sort of scroll. The top part of the palace also features a bit of interior, and there's all sorts of rocks and gemstones on display in there. And there's even some doors that lead out onto the balcony outside. There's a lot to see, a lot going on in this build. Definitely plenty to keep you busy for a while. In the story, the golden staff was originally owned by the Dragon of the East, and that's why I'm guessing this enlarged staff becomes such a prominent part of this build. It's cool to see the enlarged version here, and it can be easily removed to find the mini scale variant on the inside. It's not attached by any studs or anything, it just slides into place. And I think it actually adds some much needed height to this build, which is very, very horizontal in nature and can get even more horizontal. This thing is undeniably impressive, and there's a lot to play out in this environment with all these different interior spaces, plenty of stuff going on the outside, so many great pieces to make your own things. This thing is pure imagination fuel, and I love it. This nearly 2,400 piece build gives you 3 instruction manuals to work from, and the first one actually has some special details. Inspired by the classic novel Journey to the West, this LEGO Monkie Kid set explores the origins of the timeless legend and how the Monkey King got his staff from the Dragon of the East. There's also some designer highlights within the instructions as well, and I'd encourage you to pause and read those for yourself. There's even instructions on how to carry the model. And despite its size, the thing is incredibly sturdy. You can see some rather unattractive Technic parts in the back of the build especially, but if it makes this thing get from point A to point B without falling apart, it's probably worth it. Not much more to say about this one other than it's really, really good, and honestly the price isn't all that bad for it either. Yes, it's pricey, but you do get a lot of stuff. As someone who's always been an advocate for original LEGO in-house themes, I'm kind of surprised I slept on Monkie Kid as long as I did, because it's been doing amazing things over here. There is a team of very talented designers behind these sets who are doing things that really have never been done with LEGO before. I knew they were going to be good, but I didn't think I'd have as much fun with them as I did. And I wouldn't be surprised if I started picking up more of these in the future. But dear lord, they are terribly expensive. If I had to choose a favorite here, I think I'm going to choose the Azure Lion. I don't have a lot of experience with mechs past 2005. So this was a huge step up from what was happening with Exoforce. It's bulkier and somehow way, way sturdier than any of those things you see behind me. But seriously though, have you known all this time how good Monkey Kid was and you didn't tell me? Because this is great. This is a Monkey Kid channel now. Sorry, Minecraft's done. Wow. Did you hear that? I think it's time for me to go eat lunch. You have yourself a great life, and I'll see you later.